If someone saw only where your money went, what would they conclude you truly value? Not what you said, not what you intended, not what you promised yourself at the beginning of the month. Suppose they could not hear your explanations. Suppose they never saw your vision board, your resolutions, or the goals written in your notebook. All they could examine was the trail of your financial decisions. What testimony would that trail give? Listen carefully. Money leaves a record. We have been taught to think of a budget as a spreadsheet filled with numbers, restrictions, and uncomfortable reminders. But a budget is much more than arithmetic. A budget is the repeated allocation of limited resources. If you plan those allocations beforehand, you have a written budget. If you did not plan them, your spending still created a budget afterward. Either way, your money received instructions. Write this principle down. Spending makes priorities visible. Everybody say it. Spending makes priorities visible. Now, calling your budget a moral document is not a judgment of your income, your social position, or your personal worth. Two people may have very different resources and very different responsibilities. The issue is not how your life compares with somebody else's. The issue is how you order the choices available to you. You may sincerely say, my family matters. Good. My future matters. Good. Generosity matters. Growth matters. Freedom matters. My purpose matters. Wonderful. But sincerity does not assign resources. A value that never receives time, attention, discipline, or money may be admired, but it is not yet governing. That is where the budget becomes honest. It does not listen to your speech. It records your decisions. You say preparation matters, but impulse is funded. You say freedom matters, but appearance is funded. You say purpose matters, but convenience receives the first allocation, and purpose receives whatever survives. Sometimes nothing survives, and we call that bad luck. No, sometimes it is bad order. This message is not designed to condemn you. It is designed to bring your financial behavior into agreement with your declared purpose. We are going to examine the contradictions, identify the competing voices, and build a practical order for provision, responsibility, generosity, preparation, and purpose. But before we can correct what the budget reveals, we must confront what produces it. The deeper issue is not the numbers in your account. The deeper issue is the quality of government within you. Stewardship begins with self-government. Stewardship means accepting responsibility for resources placed within your care. It is not ownership without accountability. It is not fearful control. It is not holding everything with a closed fist because you are terrified of tomorrow. Stewardship asks a different question. How should I manage what is in my hands today? That is a leadership question. Many people want to lead organizations, families, communities, even nations. But leadership begins much closer to home. Can you govern an appetite? Can you keep a commitment after the emotion has disappeared? Can you tell yourself not now without feeling personally attacked by your own decision? Some of us can command a room, but we cannot command an impulse. That is not a money problem. That is a government problem. Every resource is limited, which means every allocation creates a sequence. When you say yes to one use of money, you reduce what remains available for another. The money cannot perform every assignment at once. If it goes here, it cannot also go there. Therefore, the issue is not merely whether something is good. The issue is whether it belongs first. This is important because financial disorder is not always caused by ignorance. You may already know that you should plan, prepare, honor commitments, and control unnecessary spending. You know it, and then something attractive appears, something urgent calls, or somebody else's lifestyle makes you question your own. Suddenly, what you knew becomes quiet, and what you feel becomes loud. So you do not need another piece of information. You need an established order. When everything is treated as equally important, nothing is truly first. The bill is important. The future is important. The family is important. The new purchase is somehow important too. Everything arrives wearing a badge marked urgent, and confusion becomes the manager. Now, do not compare your resources with somebody else's. People carry different responsibilities and possess different levels of financial choice. This teaching is not permission to shame those with less. Stewardship is faithfulness within the choices actually available to you. You cannot govern what is not in your hands, but you are responsible for the decisions that are. Say this aloud. Financial order begins with internal order. Again, financial order begins with internal order. That means disorder can be corrected. You are not condemned to denial, confusion, or endless learning without change. But to establish internal order, you must recognize what is speaking inside you when money is available. Because every time you allocate $1, several different voices begin competing for authority. Money does not decide where it will go. It receives instructions. The problem is that several voices may be giving instructions at the same time, and when no voice has been given proper authority, the loudest voice wins. Let me give you 5 voices. The first voice is intention. Intention says, I want to build a better future. I want to become free. I want to support my family. I want to develop my gift. Intention speaks beautifully. But write this down. An intention without an allocation is only a preference. If you want it but never fund it, you have admired the idea without establishing the plan. The second voice is impulse. Impulse says, I want relief now. I want convenience now. I want something new now. I want people to see that I am doing well now. Desire is not automatically evil, but desire makes a terrible governor because it treats the present feeling as the highest priority. The third voice is obligation. Obligation represents yesterday's commitment speaking to today's resources. It is the bill, the promise, the dependent, the agreement, the responsibility you already accepted. Obligation says, before you create another desire, honor the decision you have already made. The fourth voice is generosity. Generosity looks beyond personal consumption and says, someone else can be strengthened by what has been placed in my care. It is not performance. It is the deliberate release of resources for a good beyond yourself. The fifth voice is purpose. Purpose says, assign something to preparation, development, service, and the work you were meant to advance. Purpose does not merely ask what you can purchase. It asks what your resources can produce. Now watch what happens on an ordinary payday. Intention says, save for the future. Obligation says, remember the commitments. Generosity says, do not live only for yourself. Purpose says, invest in what you are building. Then impulse enters the room wearing new shoes and says, but look at this. And because impulse speaks with emotion while the other voices often speak quietly, the money moves before order is established. This is why you must stop calling everything spending. That word can hide the motive. Was it intention without discipline? Impulse without restraint? Obligation honored? Generosity expressed? Purpose funded? Ask yourself honestly, which voice becomes loudest when money reaches my hands? Which voice is always postponed until nothing remains? Once you can name the voice, you can examine its authority. And now we must follow the most impatient voice impulse to see how one ungoverned desire becomes a repeated financial direction. Impulse rarely begins at the cash register. By the time the money moves, a decision has already been building inside you. First comes the stimulus. You see it, hear about it, or watch someone else enjoying it. Then comes desire. I would like that. Desire by itself is only a feeling. But next comes the dangerous stage, the permission story. This is where the mind becomes a very creative attorney, arguing a case on behalf of the appetite. You have worked hard. This opportunity may never return. You can make up for it next month. And my favorite, it was on sale, so I saved money. You saved so much money that now you have none left. Listen. The permission story takes a desire and makes it sound like a responsibility. Then permission produces the purchase. The purchase gives temporary satisfaction, and temporary satisfaction invites repetition. Soon the exception becomes an expectation, and the expectation becomes a lifestyle. Write the chain down. Stimulus, desire, permission, purchase, repetition, direction. That final word matters: direction. One decision may appear insignificant, but repeated decisions point your life somewhere. You do not arrive at a financial pattern in one dramatic leap. You arrive through many small permissions that kept moving in the same direction. And do not misunderstand impulse. Impulse is not defined by the price of the item. A costly purchase can be purposeful and carefully prepared for. A small purchase can be impulsive if it bypasses responsibility and established purpose. The question is not merely how much did it cost. The question is what authority approved it. Now ask yourself, who made that decision, my purpose or my emotion in that moment? Do not answer too quickly. Did you purchase because the item served an assigned purpose, or because you were tired, disappointed, excited, pressured, bored, or trying to impress someone who was not even paying attention? That stranger went home and forgot your shoes, but the payment remembered. Here is the principle. What you do not consciously govern will eventually begin to govern you. An appetite that is always obeyed becomes an expectation. An expectation repeatedly funded becomes a pattern. But here is the good news. The chain can be interrupted. Between desire and purchase, there is a decision. You can challenge the permission story. You can wait. You can remember the obligation. You can redirect the money toward preparation or purpose. The same moment that once created drift can become the moment that establishes order. And when these moments repeat, their effect grows. That is why we must now examine the quiet power of apparently minor expenses, because every repeated allocation is casting a vote for the future you are actually building. Every repeated expense is a quiet vote for a particular kind of life. You may not have intended to cast that vote, but repetition does not ask about intention. It simply keeps recording the decision. We love dramatic resolutions. This year, everything will change. We become emotional, write ambitious goals, and feel financially transformed before changing a single allocation. But intensity is not the same as direction. One powerful declaration cannot govern a pattern that receives your money every week. Write this down. Repetition gives practical authority to a choice. Look at the ordinary patterns. A service you no longer use but continue paying for. Convenience that has become automatic. Fees created by delay. Upgrades that arrive before the thing you own has finished serving its purpose. Purchases made mainly to maintain an image for people who are busy maintaining their own image. None of these choices must look dramatic by itself. That is why they escape examination. Do not ask only, can I afford this today? Ask, what does this become when it repeats? Follow the choice through its normal cycle. Let the weekly decision become visible across months. Let the monthly decision stand beside the goal you keep postponing. Small decisions become honest when you stop viewing them alone. Then ask the deeper question, what is this pattern displacing? Is it displacing preparation? Is it delaying the reduction of an obligation? Is it consuming what could support generosity, learning, family provision, necessary rest, or purposeful work? Money assigned in one direction becomes unavailable in another. The hidden cost of a pattern is often the purpose that never receives an allocation. Now listen carefully. This is not a campaign against pleasure. A cup of coffee is not your enemy. Rest is not irresponsibility. Beauty, celebration, and comfort can belong inside a well-ordered life. The issue is whether enjoyment was consciously chosen and properly placed, or whether it quietly promoted itself above responsibility. And here is the hopeful side of the same law. Repetition can work for you. A modest amount repeatedly directed toward preparation becomes greater readiness. A regular act of generosity develops an outward-looking life. A consistent allocation toward learning, responsibility, or purpose strengthens the future, one decision at a time. Everybody say, repetition can build what repetition has damaged. A goal describes the destination you desire, but repeated allocation determines the direction in which you travel. Therefore, examine the vote, not merely the amount. But repetition alone does not prove stewardship. A person can repeatedly save from fear, repeatedly spend for appearance, or repeatedly avoid planning while calling it faith. So we must expose three counterfeit behaviors that may look responsible from a distance but are governed by the wrong motive. A counterfeit resembles the real thing closely enough to deceive you. That is why motive matters. Two people can perform the same financial action while being governed by entirely different spirits. One is managing with purpose. The other is reacting to fear, image, or avoidance. The first counterfeit is fear-driven hoarding. This person may look disciplined because they save everything, but internally they never feel that anything is enough. They resist legitimate responsibility. They struggle to release resources for another person's good. They treat money as though it alone can guarantee tomorrow. Preparation is wise. Fear is not preparation. Preparation assigns resources to a purpose. Fear accumulates without peace, without generosity, and without a meaningful definition of enough. You can possess money while money possesses your imagination. The second counterfeit is appearance-driven spending. This person is not purchasing usefulness. They are purchasing an announcement. They want to look successful, fashionable, generous, or completely untroubled. Meanwhile, responsibilities are waiting quietly at home. Listen, if your image is eating while your obligations are starving, that is not prosperity. You may impress people who do not know you while placing pressure on the people who do. Appearance spending uses money to manage other people's opinions instead of managing your actual responsibilities. The third counterfeit is vague optimism. This person says everything will work out. Perhaps, but what work have you assigned yourself? They make commitments without a plan, postpone necessary decisions, and expect future income or some unexplained change in circumstances to rescue present disorder. Optimism can inspire action, but optimism without management becomes avoidance wearing a smile. Hope should give you courage to face the numbers, not permission to ignore them. Now compare all three with stewardship. Stewardship does not worship money, waste money, or pretend money is irrelevant. It directs resources toward responsible and purposeful ends. It provides. It honors commitments. It prepares. It gives. It invests in growth and contribution. And yes, it enjoys. Healthy stewardship is not permanent deprivation. Contentment does not mean refusing every comfort. It means comfort no longer commands you. Enjoyment has a place, but it does not seize the throne. Ask yourself 3 questions. Am I protecting money because of fear? Am I spending money for approval? Am I ignoring money because planning makes me uncomfortable? Do not use these questions to condemn yourself. Exposure is the beginning of freedom. Once you can name the counterfeit, you can stop defending it. The healthy steward can hold resources without worshiping them, release resources without performing for applause, and plan responsibly without pretending to control the future. That is financial maturity. Now that we have removed fear, appearance, and avoidance from the governing seat, we need a positive order, a clear way to assign money to provision, responsibility, generosity, preparation, and purpose. Purpose must sit above the budget, not beside it. Before you ask, what can I buy? Ask, what kind of person, household, contribution, and future is this money meant to support? When purpose governs, every category receives its proper assignment. Let me give you the order. First is provision. Provision supports legitimate present needs, the ordinary conditions required for life, work, health, and care. It answers the question, what must be sustained? Provision is not every comfort you desire. If everything you want becomes a need, provision will swallow the whole budget. Second is responsibility. Responsibility assigns resources to commitments, dependents, agreements, and promises already made. It asks, what must be honored? A mature budget does not feed appearance while neglecting obligation. Your image should never become more expensive than your integrity. Third is generosity. Generosity plans to strengthen someone or something beyond personal consumption. It asks, what can be shared? Planned generosity is different from emotional giving performed for attention. It does not wait for public applause or a dramatic moment. It receives a place because concern for others is one of your declared values. Fourth is preparation. Preparation reserves resources for maintenance, foreseeable needs, uncertainty, and future responsibility. It asks, what must I be ready for? Preparation is not fear. Fear says, hold everything because disaster controls tomorrow. Preparation says, assign something today so tomorrow does not find me entirely unready. Fifth is purpose building. This is money directed toward growth, tools, learning, service, enterprise, and the work connected to your larger mission. It asks, what future should be built? If purpose never receives an allocation, urgency will consume every resource and leave your assignment permanently waiting. And yes, enjoyment belongs in the order. Recreation, celebration, and comfort can be honestly chosen, but enjoyment must stop disguising itself as provision. You do not need to call every desire essential just to avoid admitting that you wanted it. Enjoy it honestly, place it properly, and do not allow it to overthrow responsibility. Now, I am not giving you rigid percentages. Different lives carry different needs, seasons, and commitments. I am giving you governing questions. What must be sustained? What must be honored? What can be shared? What must be prepared for? What future should be built? Imagine the conversation when money arrives. Provision says we need this now. Responsibility says a promise is waiting. Enjoyment says I have had a difficult week. Preparation says something ahead requires readiness. Purpose says remember what we are building. Who settles the dispute? Purpose does. Purpose does not eliminate the categories. It gives them order. It may permit enjoyment, limit convenience, protect generosity, increase preparation, or delay a purchase because the whole life matters more than the immediate feeling. Say this aloud. Every allocation needs a name and a reason. Again, a name and a reason. Now we possess a blueprint. But a blueprint becomes useful only when we compare it with the structure already standing. So the next step is an honest audit, not of what we meant to do, but of where the money actually went. An audit is not an accusation. It is an examination. You are not gathering evidence to prove that you are a terrible person. You are gathering truth so you can become a better steward. Guilt says, hide the record. Growth says, show me the pattern. Before you examine any financial record, write down the 5 priorities you claim matter most. Do not look at your transactions yet. Write what you believe. Family, responsibility, generosity, preparation, learning, purpose, whatever your 5 are. Now choose a recent period that represents your normal life. List what actually left your hands. Do not improve the language to protect your feelings. If it was convenience, call it convenience. If it was enjoyment, call it enjoyment. If it was an impulse, do not promote it to essential personal development. Your money already told the truth. Now your labels must agree. Assign every outflow to one category: provision, responsibility, generosity, preparation, purpose building, enjoyment, or unresolved. That unresolved category is important. It gives you a place to put the decisions you cannot honestly explain yet. Next, mark each expense. Was it committed in advance? Was it freely chosen? Or did it result from avoidance, inattention, or impulse? A fee created by delay is different from provision. A purchase made because you were tired is different from purpose. The amount may be real in both cases, but the cause is not the same. Then circle everything recurring. Why? Because repetition reveals government. An unusual expense may describe an unusual day. A recurring expense describes a system. Now place your 5 declared priorities beside the funded categories. Where do they agree? Where do they contradict each other? Where is the financial record completely silent? You may say preparation matters, yet preparation received nothing. You may say responsibility matters, yet an obligation was delayed while a lower priority continued to be funded. Do not become dramatic, become specific. Choose one item to stop. Choose one to reduce. Choose one valuable allocation to protect. Choose one purposeful allocation to begin. Beside every choice, write the actual amount your own record allows you to release or redirect. I will do better is not an allocation. Give the decision a number and a destination. Finally, examine motive. Was this expense driven by genuine need, fear, convenience, approval, fatigue, or purpose? Sometimes the purchase is not the real issue. It is the medicine you have been using for an unexamined emotion. Listen carefully. The goal is alignment, not instant perfection. You are trying to make the next decision more truthful than the last one. That is progress. Now you have evidence, categories, motives, and 4 specific changes. The audit has shown you where you have been. The next task is to use that truth to write a forward-looking budget capable of governing the life you actually live. A budget that can govern real life must begin with reality. Start with the resources actually available, not money you hope will arrive, not an optimistic projection, and certainly not the income required to imitate somebody else's lifestyle. You cannot manage imaginary money. Place the real amount in front of you, then give it order. Assign provision and existing responsibilities first. Make present needs and prior commitments visible before discretionary desire enters the conversation. If you hide an obligation and begin spending, the obligation has not disappeared. It is simply waiting for you with a louder voice. Next, create deliberate allocations for generosity, preparation, and purpose building. Do not leave these values dependent on whatever survives at the end. Nothing usually survives an ungoverned beginning. If something matters, assign it before impulse volunteers for the position. Now give flexible spending an honest boundary. Include enjoyment. Include ordinary choices. A realistic budget does not pretend that you will never want convenience, recreation, or celebration. It gives those desires a lawful place so they do not invade every other category. Also create room for irregular realities and adjustment. Life does not always arrive according to your spreadsheet. Something may need maintenance. A responsibility may change. An expected cost may be different. A plan with no room for reality will be abandoned the first time reality interrupts it. Then establish friction in the areas where impulse is strongest. Perhaps you wait before certain purchases. Perhaps you set a firm boundary. Perhaps you separate funds in advance or consult someone you trust before changing the plan. Friction gives purpose time to speak before emotion completes the transaction. Schedule a short, recurring review. Compare the plan with actual behavior. Correct what drifted. Prepare for what is approaching. Celebrate what aligned. Do not wait until confusion becomes a crisis before looking at the record. And remember, revision is not failure. A good budget is firm about purpose, but responsive to genuine change. You are not worshiping the plan. You are using the plan to serve responsibility. If resources are shared in a household, make the governing priorities explicit. One written budget cannot survive several hidden definitions of success. Talk about what must be sustained, honored, shared, prepared for, and built. Now the framework has become usable. It has assignments, boundaries, flexibility, protection from impulse, and a rhythm of review. It can survive ordinary pressure because it was designed for an ordinary human life. Let us now compress the entire message into a set of laws, principles you can remember when a financial decision is standing in front of you and demanding an answer. Let me give you the laws quickly. This is not new teaching. This is the whole message compressed for decision making. Law number 1, money follows order. When priorities are unresolved, allocations become confused. Law number 2, unassigned resources will be recruited. Urgency will recruit them. Appetite will recruit them. Appearance will recruit them. If purpose gives no instruction, something louder will. Law number 3, repeated choices possess more practical authority than occasional declarations. What you fund consistently will shape your direction, even when your words announce another destination. Law number 4, responsibility must never be sacrificed to maintain an image. If looking successful requires you to neglect what you have promised, the appearance is consuming your integrity. Law number 5, generosity and preparation become dependable when they are planned. Values left to whatever remains will often receive nothing. Law number 6, purposeful enjoyment is permitted. Enjoyment is not the enemy, but it must not impersonate necessity or overthrow responsibility. Law number 7, a budget is both permission and boundary. It gives you freedom to fund what serves your purpose, and it gives you authority to restrain what competes with it. Now say the synthesis aloud. Stewardship is leadership made visible through allocation. Again, stewardship is leadership made visible through allocation. These laws give you a reference point when urgency is shouting, appetite is negotiating, and appearance is asking for attention. But remembered principles are not enough. The final question is personal. What will you now change? We must move from agreement to repentance, from conviction to immediate commitment, and from merely discussing stewardship to becoming a steward. Repentance means changing your mind so completely that your direction changes with it. In this matter, repentance is leaving denial, disorder, and excuse behind and turning toward truth, responsibility, and purpose. Be quiet for a moment and examine yourself. Where have your intentions and your behavior separated? Which responsibility have you delayed? Which impulse has been governing you? Do not hide the answer. Truth is not your enemy. Now make 5 commitments. Correct 1 recurring leak. Honor 1 neglected responsibility. Establish 1 allocation for preparation. Plan 1 deliberate act of generosity. Fund 1 priority connected to your purpose. Do not merely admire these actions. Give each one a name, an amount, and a time. Say this aloud. I will govern my resources. I will not be governed by appetite, fear, appearance, or avoidance. I will direct what is in my hands toward responsibility and purpose. May you receive wisdom to recognize what matters, courage to face what is true, discipline to follow the plan, contentment to resist comparison, honesty to correct disorder, generosity to look beyond yourself, and strength to continue when emotion has passed. Your past financial record may explain your present pattern, but it does not have authority over your next decision. You can stop, you can reorder, you can rebuild. A new testimony does not begin when everything becomes perfect. It begins with the next truthful allocation. So make your next financial decision agree with the life you claim to value, the responsibilities you have accepted, and the purpose you have chosen to serve.